Boy, we're back for what, Stephen? Episode 11. We're here for episode 11.
Yes, we are.
Good shit. Episode 10 has been doing really awesome. Of course, thanks to you guys out there who continue to give us all the love.
Muchas gracias.
Yeah, greatly appreciated, of course. I guess we should address the elephant in the room.
Ooh, what could that... now I know what it is, but yes, address the elephants.
We're sitting together.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's up?
Oh,
That's
wow.
a real high
Cool.
five.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're
Normally,
not...
I just punch the computer screen whenever we're, giving each other knucks.
I know. Pretty wild, dude. You're in town. Why are you in town, Stephen?
Yeah, I am in town. My half-brother got married, so I flew in from California and went and saw that this past weekend, staying a little bit longer to see family and friends. Yeah. Had to come see you in your new beautiful home.
Thank you.
Wow,
Yeah. Well,
it is very beautiful. Lots of open space for dogs to run and people to play around.
Well, thanks for visiting, dude, and it's really awesome that you got to be over here, and it's really amazing that we get to, do episode 11 together. What's new, man?
Well, it depends if we're talking about Elrond or the life, or it's last time we spoke, I know that I gave the nail is in the coffin that we're in a bear market, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's weird how it feels. You see it in the price, and there's a time that I think seeing price go down really feels like this loss of euphoria. But where we're at right now, it's really just like, this is the norm. But imagine if all of this stuff was getting launched like it felt like with MyR Decks. All the focus felt like on Elrond and the MyR Decks. But at this, the stage of this bear market, things just feel kind of like lulled. I don't know. It's like things are happening, but it doesn't feel like exciting, I guess.
Yeah.
That's how it's felt for me.
I totally get what you mean, because when there's good news in a bull market, it's like, man, is it ever going to stop? Is this good news going to stop? And usually good news gives a push to the upside, especially when the MyR Decks gets new listings like the UTK listing and stuff, which we'll get into later. But I totally agree, dude. We're definitely in a bear market, and I think we're watching Bitcoin come out of its relief rally that it just had, actually. It's breaking down under the 30K side once again, even though it raced up to, I think, above 32,000. So I don't know. It seemed like that might have been a relief rally, but I think we're going to continue to go down as things look down in the overall market, not just in the crypto world, but I spoke about this on the last episode. But yeah, man, there's a lot of cool news coming out, and yeah, it doesn't feel like there's the normal hype that there would be around it as there would be in a bull market.
Yeah, it's fun though, because we still get to kind of take these things more for what they are, and there is value, I think, I really am just speaking for myself, so always feel free to add your own 2 cents. But yeah, it's just like when things are released, over the past couple weeks, the bridge came out, the UTK is now kind of coming out on top of that. And just in general, just the blog is full of things, but it's just like this psychological period of this kind of bull or bear market, but bull market depending on how long your perspective is. And it's, I think it's just one of the cycles, and it's like I'm still feeling good about where things are and where they're heading. It's just kind of the experience and just the feeling about it is different.
I'm not too worried about the current price, and I'm not too worried about where I currently sit. As I always say, I'm dollar cost averaging. This is my long-term investment, and I'll continue to push forward because I believe in the project and I believe in the team. Benjamin has, as usual, been pretty active in the Twitter sphere. Speaking of the team, they're kind of letting me down in some kind of ways, though, because how long ago was it that they said they would be releasing the new MEX economics, and we still have yet
about a month ago.
Yeah, and what they said, we'll be releasing updates on the MEX economics within 2 weeks.
Yeah, whenever that was, he specified 1 to 2 weeks on that tweet. Yeah, he did make a reference to that, and definitely at this point we're at the 1st of June, so that time has definitely come and gone. So before I run it off on a tangent, you were talking about Benjamin, and he mentioned the MEX economic model, and you're still waiting on that.
Yeah.
So let me dig into that. It sounds like the MEX economics, are important to you, and that's something that you're waiting for. So I guess, how would you feel if like there was no expected MEX upgrade coming? Like if this just was more of a reality and there was no more closer light at the end of the tunnel in terms of hopefully this, this upgrade will improve the outlook on MEX.
That's a good question, Stephen, because I don't think I've considered that. I think, to me, if the team weren't to be doing things to try to improve MEX, then I think I would have, a little bit of less faith in the team. But just, I think it speaks volumes, the fact that the team is even considering MEX economics. That means that they're listening to all the outcries on Twitter, because, for the longest time, all I've been seeing is people complaining about how MEX is not what it, has been touted to be. And so now they're looking to the team to go ahead and make this right. And it's really nice to see the fact that they are doing MEX economics. But as far as how I would feel if they weren't, I think I would just feel disappointed, and I would be like, is the team even listening to what the people want? Because obviously MEX is not what it was originally made to be, or maybe it is, and they're fumbling with their fingers.
Yeah, that's a tough question. And the reaction that the team has had, there is kind of a perspective of it that you gain some trust and some like appreciation of the team addressing it. And I don't know, it's almost similar to what they did for the RIDE token listing, how they did take steps forward to remedy and to smooth over what happened with that. In a way, by doing that, they kind of acknowledged, admitted that there was something wrong. Like there was a blind side of the RIDE token listing. Clearly people took advantage of it, and that was true manipulation, and involved some validators, I think, on the market too, or on the network too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think there's just like this question of trust and faith when people acknowledge and are, I guess it's very much like you're riding not a double-sided sword. I can't think of the analogy, but by admitting where you kind of fell short, it definitely, there's something to be said about the honesty and about like the openness, but there's also negative repercussions to that whenever they do address something and you're like, oh, maybe this is something a little bit more experimental than we ever really felt. And it's all a matter of just like confidence in the voice that the team has, I guess.
Speaking of the MEX economic upgrades, I don't believe we've ever had a chance to go in and explore what these upgrades could possibly be. I think
that's a good question.
I think this was posed once before, but I don't think we ever got into it. Do you have any ideas on what you think? Well, okay, maybe I'm asking this wrong. So what would you like to see, or what are your thoughts on upgrading MEX and how the team could actually provide what people call, or what people want, which is utility to this token that is apparently the first-class citizen?
Yeah, so I have some questions for you. If you just want me to answer the question, I can not easily, but I can do that. But for whether it be for me to hear you, to rehear yourself, or the listeners tuning in, would you be okay kind of like giving a short history on what is MEX really quickly, and even like talking about it from your perspective? What do you see as not working? Even though these are things we may have already discussed, I think it'd be good to just rehash it out and re-examine.
Originally, I think I only considered it as a token for the DEX. I never considered it as much. I never considered it having much utility because I'd never heard it being called the first-class citizen to begin with.
I don't remember when the first time I heard that was.
It was at one of the town halls, I believe. When
I remember that. But that was the first time.
Yeah, I think it's when things crashed and they redid No, things didn't crash. They redid the APR and stuff, which eventually crashed everything. But I don't think I ever looked at the MEX token as being anything more than the token that pays me rewards in. And then it seems like the team kind of like stuck their foot in their mouth, like you've said before, by calling it the first-class citizen. Yeah. And by doing so, one would expect a lot more utility from it. One would expect, because currently what does MEX do right now? All it does is you get paid rewards in it, it gets locked, and you could earn more MEX with your MEX.
And there is also meta bonding.
There's yes,
which I think it's just like the tricky thing, or the big theme is with time is always kind of like the disclaimer at this point, because meta bonding is 100% like a utility of LockMex, but it's almost like a dilemma in and of itself, because unlike staking Elrond, just by staking Elrond you get an owner's, or you get part of meta bonding. But obviously, as we know, with LockMex, you either meta bond or you farm it, and we all know that MEX being an inflationary asset, it's like, well, okay, so at this point we're really comparing, do I get farming rewards and maximize my LockMex, or MEX, probably I'll just say LockMex ownership, or do I like, I guess I'm really interested in people who are choosing meta bonding.
Yeah, because the reward difference is so huge. And I would have expected with meta bonding to have been able to, like with meta staking, how you're able to have, I believe, in some instances with HoloRide, you were able to have your LP token, and then you were also able to stake HoloRide that was already within your LP token. I expected those kind of things with MEX. I expected to be able to keep my MEX within my MEX farm, and that was going to be counted towards my meta bonding. No, it's not. So where is this MEX utility, Stephen? Where are the pairings with MEX too? Like, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. That, and so I mean that speaks to something, because there was this past week, or maybe the week before that, sometime over the past 2 weeks, MEX was listed outside of the DEX.
Yes, it was.
And it was kind of at that point that I realized that I had been misinterpreting either tweets or expectations about MEX. Because I thought MEX, or no, I think I have seen exclusively MEX pairings and MEX listings. And so a MEX listing is obviously the MEX being out, or is introduced outside of it, like on a centralized exchange. But MEX listings, which I'm realizing now I did see that, those will be pairings of coins with MEX within the DEX. And I think that is a good sign that I'm definitely looking forward to, because, but also too though, if that does happen, if you can swap MEX for token, whatever token it is, then also too, at that point I almost have to say, like, Elrond should not be able to be swapped with things. And with this, but this is like a dilemma that I've had since the beginning, was that I thought that in order to make any sort of swaps on the DEX, you would need to have MEX. I thought you would arrive at the DEX and pretty much the first gate to get through was I need to get MEX. I thought that was going to be the first kind of check of interacting with the DEX, but obviously, as we know, you go on the DEX and I have one Elrond and I want to swap for this list of tokens. So it's almost as if like Elrond needs to, and this might be like a deep like computer science, like smart contract level like topic, but it seems like they need to like pull Elrond out of the DEX so that MEX can act. But I don't think that will like, because that would add utility, that would add purpose, meaning for the MEX token. Because right now, if you can buy something with MEX or Elrond, people will probably just use Elrond. Like, I don't know if that solves the reason to hold MEX. If you can trade MEX with all the same tokens you can trade with eGold.
I think I'm going to disagree with you on taking eGold off of the DEX. I feel like
I don't want that to happen, but if that did happen, that would give people reason to hold MEX.
I think that's forced reason though, and I don't think anyone wants to be forced to I
agree.
Be forced to trade their treasured asset that is eGold, which is the layer 1 of the DEX, because MEX is built on top of the Elrond ecosystem, and I don't think it'd make too much sense to get rid of the layer 1 token that is really the powerhouse of everything there. Yeah, MEX is the first class citizen of the DEX, but at the same time, it's really just, I consider it my reward system right now. I consider it, I'm waiting for 0.001 again. That'll be really nice whenever that happens.
0.001.
Yeah, right now we're pretty four zeros deep. I think.
Oh, of MEX?
Yeah, with
yeah.
MEX right now.
Speaking of which, I did recently diversify my portfolio.
Oh, yeah?
And guess which token or tokens I am now back ownership. I have ownership of.
Twitter is telling me MEX.
Yes, sirree.
Do tell us why, Stephen.
Well, I see promise, and I know that I sold LockMex, and we talked about selling LockMex, and I can talk all about that too, whether it be holding or selling LockMex. Forget about it. I'm literally on the fence, but I needed to do something that did, I think, communicate like that I did, like there was meaning behind what I was saying. So I didn't just buy LockMex, or I didn't just buy MEX just to be like, oh, I did the thing and I didn't want to. Like, I just felt like it was more difficult for me to really be an advocate for, saying MEX is something good to have, or kind of argue for even like the Maya exchange, because that's what MEX really represents is governance, is ownership of the Maya exchange. Mm-hmm. And it's like I have to own some. Yeah. Like I use it every day. Like, even it's so, I mean, maybe it doesn't have utility, maybe it doesn't do, and that's whenever I did make the change, I talked about it on Twitter, but I said basically just like, by having owning MEX, it shouldn't, if anything, like some people were like, oh, why did you do that? But it's just like, well, I felt like I needed to do something that was an action statement, and if anything, it should give people who have been farming MEX and just like not worried about ever swapping it over, like it should give them, like, make them feel empowered. It's like, okay, I feel better, like I feel like I'm in the right position.
Did you use the LockMex exchange to exchange your Eagle for MEX?
Yeah. So my goal is to keep it for at least a year. Like, okay. I'm not interested in the actual unlock schedule, because I mean, look at everybody who does speak highly, or is the MEX champion, or whatever you want to call them. Like, I did a poll at some point, and the vast majority of people polled weren't interested in unlocking their MEX. I mean, so I think the way that the team talked about first class citizenship and everything, I think that they obviously were communicating things by that, and I do also think that, I mean, it kind of worked. I mean, I whenever I was getting kind of crapped on because people thought that just because I sold LockMex means that like I want it to go down and I think it's not worth anything. Yeah. It's like, no, like it is, but I saw the cult-like mentality that went behind it. And I remember saying when I sold my LockMex that I did it because I didn't really want to be, frustrated at the team. It's like, I was frustrated, so I sold. So then I didn't have any reason to complain. But now it's like, I'm back, and now I feel like I just like see both sides of it, and I don't have as much as I did, whenever I sold it, but I have more liquidity kind of spread out for other things like ZoidPay, like Elrond, and like, did I say ZPay already?
Yes, you did. Yep.
Yeah, so ZPay and UTK was the one that I didn't mention. So I've taken a different stance on Ride. We talked about it in either episode 9 or 10.
I think it was actually the last episode that we were speaking on Ride.
Yeah, maybe so.
How we feel about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of me feels like I should own a little bit of everything, but as I find it hard to, which is why I tell people, like, don't try to mirror my portfolio or anything, because diversification is the kind of the best way to mitigate risk and also gain exposure of all of these promising projects. So that's what made me feel better about diversifying, was a few different things.
So why, when switching, did you choose to switch to LockMex over MEX?
I think it all came down to the timeline of with the LockMex exchange going nowhere, there's an opportunity for me to be like, oh, I wishy-washed again, and I'm either going to sell some. I don't think I will ever sell all of my LockMex again, but I plan to hold it for at least a year. So at that point, by using the exchange rate on LockMex exchange, like, you literally put in X dollars of Elrond and you get a multiplier, because the exchange rate for Elrond to LockMex is currently, I'll just say it's 2 million. Yeah, it's like 1.98 million right now. So that's the exchange rate. So I mean, if you flip that around and consider it the other direction, that means that right now, like, you are getting a pretty good price, a pretty good exchange rate on buying lock MEX.
Yeah.
Like, if you flip the chart upside down, like, you're buying the low. But of course, if you're selling lock MEX and you're hoping that number stays low, gives you a better ratio of Elrond, then at that point, you know, you're not really buying a low as much as you're selling a top.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an exchange. And so, yeah, if I keep my lock MEX for a year like I plan, then if I've spent all that Elrond, I would take the MEX exchange rate, but the lock MEX is more favorable right now.
So with this lock MEX that you have swapped for, are you now just farming all this lock MEX?
100% in the lock MEX farm.
That's cool. Are you farming for lock MEX or MEX?
Yeah, definitely farming for lock MEX.
Okay, that's cool to hear, man. Speaking of diversifying one's portfolio, we are all getting the chance to do so with the upcoming UTK 2.0 token, which has been bridged over on the 31st of, I might be getting my timeline wrong, but on the 31st of May.
Yeah.
And as of today, the liquidity pools are open for people to start depositing liquidity. I'm excited about UTK 2.0. I think there's a lot of promise here. And for those of you who don't know what UTK is, it's a platform built on top of the Elrond network, and it's it allows merchants to accept crypto payments, and they automatically get transferred into their fiat currency that they wish it to be transferred in. So it's like an instantaneous process. There's no confusing, okay, I just accepted Bitcoin. Should I sell all this Bitcoin now, or should I hang on to this Bitcoin? You're getting the exact amount that it was worth at that time. And so it's a cool, powerful program that's coming out, and it's coming to the Maillard DEX.
Yeah, we're literally in the midst of it. And I thought that this is kind of, I'll call it the calm before the storm. I mean, not only because Benjamin has been referring to this storm that's coming and the wave and all this glorious verbiage, which I still believe we're just in a bear market. So like literally like everything is compressing. Like we're at like the bottom. I get the feeling of like we're at like $8 Elrond, which is when I was accumulating. Like that's how I feel. Like I don't, the price is the price, but just like the feeling, like the outlook, like I don't know. I think that we're gonna get a quick turnaround here in the market, but I'm literally just the boy that cried wolf, because every time I'm just a perma bull.
It'd be really nice to see a quick turnaround, but I'm gonna go ahead and take the different stance here and say that we're about ready to enter cold winter, man.
Winter at the beginning of June.
I don't want to get too much into like speculating on macroeconomics, but I think things are about to get really weird.
What do you think is coming up? Give us your outlook of your stance in the world, what you've been seeing, what you've been reading.
I've been reading things about food shortages, and honestly, that's probably the most worrying thing on my mind currently. We're blessed to live in America, where like I'm pretty sure a majority of us do not suffer from starvation in America. So I think food shortage is going to be something really scary for the entire market as a whole, and just for the world as a whole. So if the market begins to tank, I don't think the Bitcoin decoupling, or the crypto decoupling from the market has yet to begin. So I think we will follow as well. If I'm wrong, which I would love to be happy about being wrong, hopefully things will turn around. But currently, with the state of Russia and Ukraine, which Ukraine is one of the biggest bread baskets in the world, which means they provide a lot of grain, things are just being stifled right now. Things are being slowed down. Supply chains are still being hit pretty hard. And so that leads me to think that we may be in the very beginning of what is a recession here in America and throughout the world. Just go look outside at your gas pump and what you're paying for gas currently. Things are, this is some of the most expensive things I've ever seen in my life. And I'm sure maybe it's been just as bad, but I was not participating in the economy then. I am now. Food is expensive. Everything's expensive. And I really think it's just going to get worse. I don't want to sound and spread FUD, but
global FUD, like no Elrond talk, just FUD in general.
Yeah, but I am worried, as you can tell. So
it's pretty intense, just the way that the world works, and that's why, you know, that's part of the crystal ball metaphor. Is just like, all right, like whether we go up or down, like the world is just expanding and growing and changing every day. I try not to get worried about fear, and I don't know, like that's such an interesting, I guess, dilemma, because there's something to be said about staying informed and preparing for tomorrow. But if for myself, if I get over affected by fear, I mean, that's just something that I try to acknowledge as something that's out of my control. There's a longer conversation about that, because who's to say what will happen? And I think there's a conversation about having trust and faith in humanity, because hopefully things will bring people together rather than cause for them to be separated. But no matter whatever it is, the economies of things have to flow and function somehow.
Yeah.
There will always be some sort of rivers flowing, and we are all one big community, and hardship brings people together. So it's one of those things that the world, hopefully, whatever happens, will come out at a better place than it was. But, you know, it's easy to look into the future or not look into the future, but, you know, kind of project and look at the news and stuff like that. So hopefully things like that don't happen. The food shortage anywhere, I know that that wouldn't affect anybody probably positively. So is that something that you feel is something you need to prepare for, or does that, I don't, you know, now I feel like I'm your therapist.
No, there are things I'd like to do in order to prepare for such an outcome, but I also don't want to be that person who took all the toilet paper.
Yeah.
I don't want there to be like a global panic again. Hopefully panic doesn't set in and those kind of things start to happen. How do you feel about this thing, Stephen? What is your long-term outlook on the global? I know you call yourself a permabull, but how do you feel about, I guess we're in macroeconomics right now, so how do you feel about things in general?
Yeah, like I said, I try not to address or let things kind of get to me that might be out of my control, and just try to be, I don't know, thoughtful about stuff. But the truth is, like, living in the world these days is not easy for probably anybody. So, and keeping it, I guess, kind of relevant to finances and just this idea of survival. That's what storing our money is about. It's about, we put work in and we're able to save and use that resource. So at this point, even looking back to years before any of this was a reality, I'm checking kind of myself. I'm testing my own theory that I saw, the value that I saw in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin these days is more praised for some of its utilities per se, as being that digital real estate, as being that digital store of wealth. So the biggest thing that would ever truly concern me regarding the future of Bitcoin probably really just has to do with like the internet, like being kind of like damaged, or like, I mean, something to that extent, because no matter what it is, I mean, even if the economy goes down, so imagine the economy goes down, that means like, you know, perhaps, yes, gold might, because people might be storing that, like, say gold is something that people are interested in, but, you know, if the economy is down, then that's going to be a supply shortage there too. So thinking about just this idea of storing wealth and because gold does do that, and I think Russia has been increasing its gold reserves. Apparently the Russian currency is doing better than it has in years. And I mean, it just has to do with the government they're running.
Didn't it tank when they invaded Ukraine and we put sanctions upon them, though?
That's a good question. It has to do, or maybe it just has to do with the reserves. I would have to look at it. Yeah, the currency, I guess. I mean, actually, it isn't.
It bounced back.
Yeah, so it looks like the worst rate was at 0.0075, and that was in March 11th. And I mean, at this point now it's better than it was before they. Yeah,
That's kind of insane.
the Russian, which is the ruble, its exchange rate to the U.S. dollar is better now than it was before they declared war. Like literally, I'm sorry, I don't think they declared war, but shot their cannons.
I'm not a fan of Russia, but talk about a comeback.
Right. And I mean, this just goes to high level things like, world governments. And they've been, I think, I can't remember exactly, that's just something that I may have seen over the past couple of weeks about their gold reserves. And that's exactly why it's helping their currency perform well, because it's backed by gold. So, in this world where maybe there's a food shortage, there's a big, scary conversation to be had about it doesn't matter if you have $1 million, there's no food. So it comes down to a question of me rationalizing what that could look like and wondering what sort of reserves may or may not be built in within the system. And if it ever does come to that, hopefully they have the foresight to see it coming, rather than with COVID. It was just like COVID, lockdown, boom, and then like there was just like empty floors, literally. Well, at that point, let's hope that, numbers are numbers and we can see when and if there is true cause for concern. Living in California, the southern part always talks about water shortage, and even that's a relevant conversation. In Northern California, that's something that, again, I probably don't think too much about, because I just need to trust in humanity, and I need to trust in people, because having fear isn't always too fun.
Yeah, we're all always hopeful for the future and hopeful things will work out. But to go ahead and get us off this depressing tangent or depressing topic, we didn't really cover how UTK is coming to Elrond, which I think is really big news. Last time we spoke, it wasn't quite live yet, but it is currently, and we have someone sitting in the room with us who has used it. It is the ASTRA portal, the cross-chain bridge for tokens to leap forward in scalability and performance. That means ERC20s can be bridged to Elrond, and they have been successfully bridged with UTK token. Stephen, can you tell us how your experience went with bridging your UTK token to the Elrond blockchain?
Yeah, I can happily report that all the UTK I sent were transacted, and nothing lost in the process. I'm always like intimidated having to deal with things like MetaMask, because I know like the MetaMask bots on Twitter, you just like type MetaMask and they're like right there ready to try to scam you. So I feel like my connotation with MetaMask is like as soon as I start using it, like they're gonna be like scammers like everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know, it's not true, and as long as you don't take their bait. But it is weird though, the way that I feel interacting with Ethereum versus Elrond. Like literally, like maybe this is just because we have been in the ecosystem for a while. When I think it just says something significant about the MyArt app, the ability to transact. So just to give a high level, I moved from KuCoin to MyArt Dex, and you log into MetaMask and you log into your MyArt DeFi wallet on like Chrome or something like that. You can use the MyArt app, you can use whatever. Yeah. But it connects to MetaMask, and then you say how much. I mean, it's all just as straightforward as you kind of expect, really. And I think the worst part was the Ethereum gas fees. There were deposit fees outside of KuCoin taken in UTK, so I lost a little bit UTK there. And then the gas fees to send from MetaMask to the actual bridge was another, I think that was a bigger set of fees. But thankfully I was moving a larger amount, so the percentage wasn't all too bad. Nonetheless, it was there, but I'm just glad to own the UTK token now, because I have some thoughts as to what could happen when it hits the DEX.
I completely agree. And speaking of when it hits the DEX, that's going to be tomorrow, June 2nd, 13:30 UTC. if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah.
But you talked about the gas fees, and because it will be coming to the Maillard DEX, gas fees are things you will no longer experience if you want to purchase UTK. And the only place you will not experience gas fees is on the Maillard DEX. I
mean, Elrond has its form of gas fees, but it's just so small in comparison.
What you'll pay maybe a little over $1 to move a couple $1,000s worth of UTK, which is really incredible. So myself, I'm waiting for tomorrow for the listing. I think, of course, I might get. If things go wild, which they seem to do sometimes with very hyped listings like Hollow Ride, and I can't think of other things that went haywire currently.
Yeah, I can't think of. I know, obviously, Hollow Ride did.
Yeah.
The Ithium was another token that had its different way of getting into. That was like the new token listing.
It increased in value. Yeah, but no one got to like sell at that current time. But yeah, with UTK coming on, I think we might see an interesting bump in UTK value. But if that does happen, I'm just going to wait it out and purchase at a lower price, because if you look at ZoidPay, we hit a top of $1.75, almost pushing $1.80. And I think we're sitting around 29 cents right now.
Yeah. The whole market really took a dive there, and especially with the hype that ZoidPay had surrounding the staking, meta staking, shopping pool sales.
Yeah.
I still believe in that, and that, to be clear, is why that I have not sold ZPay altogether. I wanted to diversify to protect myself. We're in a bear market, like whatever everybody else is doing out there. In the last episode you brought up just risk mitigation, and I remember we talked about some of the things we're doing to protect ourselves from risk, and we're just swimming. It's just kind of this bear market, and everybody is swimming to keep our heads up.
Yep.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if Edward has anything to say to me about me selling off some liquidity to diversify, that wasn't my intention, and I don't think there's anything to be said about like I lost faith or like I dumped on holders. Because I still see the value in ZoidPay, and that's something that I still feel great about. And they're releasing and making moves on the MEX liquidity to be used through their internet browser, the Chrome extension. And then recently I did see them starting to make moves on the NFT that they're putting out, the Zoidsters.
Yeah.
But just to at least address that a little bit, we don't really know much about the NFT. Like some people on Twitter are like, oh, like give us the information on that. So it's like, I mean, all we know is what what we interviewed Edward and he told us about, and anything else out there, like we literally don't have insider information. But I still, for the record, feel good about ZoidPay. But yeah, I mean, the whole market, I mean, even Ride has really kind of, for a while there, I think I talked about how I liked it because it was outperforming Elrond. But over the past couple weeks, everything is just, all the liquidity is just shifting. So I guess that's really the emphasis, is that liquidity is shifting around and finding its settled spot. And that's just the process of bear markets. Like some people are selling, but other people, I guess kind of considering myself, I just looked at my portfolio and specifically read this. I finally got around to reading the UTK 2.0 tokenomics, and just everything they're talking about in this pretty lengthy article, it really just creates this feeling of whirlwind, of positive whirlwind between Elrond, UTK, and MEX. Maybe, perhaps even obviously, that would make sense given that Elrond acquired Utrust. Utrust equals Elrond. I think it's noteworthy that UTK is under 100 million market cap.
Yeah.
It's also been around. This is what really surprised me. I know ZoidPay has had its time in the years like starting in 2018, but even the fact that there's chart data on UTK from 2017.
Really?
Yeah, and I was showing that chart to you earlier, to where it's been around for a while. It's gone through the market swings just like other coins have, but just looking forward to its kind of moving into the kind of the Elrond family, bridging to ESDT. So there's a reason that I had to get some UTK. It's like I've got to have some UTK, and that's the same sort of mentality with the lock MEX. It's just like it made me uncomfortable to be so heavily allocated into ZoidPay liquidity, because I'm genuinely excited about these things. And for a little bit there, I was only excited about ZoidPay, but it literally just took me to get out and read and to kind of become a sponge and digest and try to, this is just me learning, just the process of figuring out what feels right, what feels good, and ZoidPay is a part of that. But I need to have everything that Elrond has got its kind of stamp on.
When you were just talking there, Stephen, I think you mentioned something that's worth talking about, and that's the locked MEX liquidity that ZoidPay's been working on. I have a tweet here from Edward, and this is some updates on the locked MEX liquidity. Always be improving based on you guys. A holder that stakes 250,000 ZoidPay can spend $8,000 worth of locked MEX at 1-to-1 parity worth of MEX in 8 transactions. So you can spend $8,000 worth of locked MEX at a 1-to-1 ratio.
And is it through the Chrome extension?
I believe so. That's how you would do it. But you have to have $250,000, or I'm sorry, 250K ZoidPay tokens. So 250,000 ZoidPay tokens equals about $72,500 currently. So if you have that much ZoidPay, you can spend your locked MEX at a 1-to-1 ratio and not wait for them to unlock. I think that's quite the cool feature. And keep it up, ZoidPay. Keep up what you guys are doing. Keep building, and people will come.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk a little bit about ZPay, because yes, I moved some money out of there, but I mean, I've always had questions about ZPay too, and that's another part of what I think helps whenever you do diversify is whenever I owned nothing but ZPay, it's not like I didn't not want to talk about it, but it's just almost like you feel more inclined to just show your faith in it. So I still own it, and by selling some, though, gives me this feeling that I do at least feel comfortable asking questions that they're not like pointed at any direction, but just open more just like kind of questions like, ZPay is part of meta bonding, which is a bigger number than most of the other coins doing meta bonding, right? So I guess my question right now is, how ZPay is going to kind of relationally move forward with MyRDEX. Because as of now, obviously, I keep saying obviously, maybe not too obvious, but I know that ZoidPay is working on their own, as I've kind of come to actually even uncover today, the platform that they're making with the degen farming, the WAN token, everything, aren't they kind of making their... I was going to ask, aren't they making their own DEX? But it's not a DEX, because I don't think that there will be exchanging, unless, of course, the only way to get WAND is, again, through staking your ZPay in a certain way on a certain farm.
I think you get WAND from staking WAND. But
so that will be the only way to get it. You can't... Well, I'm sure being a token, there will be exchanges that might add it. But maybe... I mean, if they're creating a DEX, it's not one that can compete with the MyRDEX. Sure.
You got the L1 tokens on the MyRDEX. I think this is just an example of another person building upon the DEX, another project that is taking advantage of the super fast speeds of the DEX and making it work for them.
Network.
Yeah, of the Elrond network in general. But yeah, I don't think they'll ever be in a position relationally that will compete with the MyRDEX in any way. At least that's my opinion. I think that they will continue to shine as their own thing, and everything that they build will be uniquely applicable to the ZPay ecosystem.
Yeah, and that I think is something that I'm really looking forward to, and one of the reasons I'm still bullish on ZPay was, it again, as we kind of seemed like we established there, the only way to get WAND will be through ZPay.
Yeah, through the ZoidPay ecosystem, I believe.
Yeah, and I still think that there's a lot to be said for everything we've ever talked about ZPay. It still shines through with their strategy to marketing, with how open and communicative they are on Twitter, whether you're adding the ZPay account or sometimes even Edward will chime in. And I like that. The whole platform that they're creating through staking and through this WAN degen farming, I think it all just rides back on that ZoidPay. Before they were on ESDT, they were on the Tomo chain, and they had this time to develop their own business plan, their own energy, their own community, and they literally and I think that's what has been kind of cool about now seeing another token, in the midst of UTK. Because UTK is, correct me if I'm wrong, the first ERC20 token to bridge to Elrond.
I believe so.
The first.
Yes.
Because, technically maybe it was USDC.
Yeah.
Which is still something to be said about that, because that was nice that was a bridge opportunity. But UTK has my attention because just like ZoidPay, they had their own. That's what just blows my mind is, okay, Utrust has been around for 3, 4, 5 years, 2017, 5 years. And they've been doing, they've been in the thick of it. And especially, so here's just my thought. It's UTK is under $100 million. Yet they're Elrond just acquired them, and they're you can feel this sense of resource and attention that's being put to Utrust, but it's under $100 million market cap, and it's been here since 2017. Some people would look at that and be like, oh my gosh, it's an underdog, it's just maybe something somebody would say about Elrond too, but just I see this whole ecosystem just really getting the spotlight. And I know that we all have our own interpretations and feelings of, we're in a bull market versus bear market, feeling good versus bad. But I guess I just have to bring my positivity in saying that I just see this as crazy, because for me, the last time we were in bear market lows like this, not to say that it might not get worse or it couldn't get worse, everything was crashed and it felt like complete despair. It was just damn, none of that went anywhere. But we're sitting here and I really feel like I see this projection of upward trajectory where literally the last bear market that I was really went through, it was just everything was getting wiped clean. It was complete and utter true destruction kind of. So the fact that we're at price-wise bear market lows, I'm really starting to feel this kind of realistic divergence between price and between just easily feeling and sensing. Like I said, for me, I can sense this positive, just this moving just upward growth and movement from here. And again, call me a permabull and whatever, but it feels like this, whether prices go down a little bit more, I just think that these are really low prices for buying and for even just moving around our own liquidity.
Yeah, these are extremely low prices. I agree, but as I said earlier, it could go lower. It's all dependent on the macroeconomics of things.
Which for the record, I still do disagree with.
Okay, well, we will definitely see, and we can.
Yeah. Well, I've got to until proven wrong. I guess.
You mentioned the WAND token. I'm actually looking at the roadmap, ZoidPay roadmap right now for June 2022. And they say that they will be launching the WAND website and then sharing details on how to participate in the token sale.
In June?
In June, nice. Yep, this month.
Good
so ZoidPay is always, one thing I really like about ZoidPay is that they're always very communicative with the community as a whole. They're always keeping people updated on on their roadmap, on the milestones that they make, and everything that they do. So it's really cool to see that they're moving forward with this stuff, and it looks like they achieve almost everything that they put on the roadmap, unlike some people we may know. But that is one project that we are both very excited about, and I think I just wanted to take this time to talk about another project that piqued my interest from the Elrond ecosystem, and that's this Hatom. I'm maybe pronouncing it wrong.
How do you spell it?
HATOM. It's if you're interested, check out the website at beta.hatom.com. They also have a Twitter. Just look up Hatem Protocol, I believe. And this is going to be the first platform for lending and borrowing crypto assets on Elrond. I think that's something the Elrond ecosystem needed. It would be really cool to use your tokens that you have and leverage it for a loan. The website looks really cool. It looks like they're going to try their best to make it as modern and as slick as possible. And I'm looking forward to what they develop. And I think the lending is opening a gate for a lot of different and cool things. Because I know ZoidPay also talked about opening a lending platform within their ZoidPay ecosystem.
Yeah, the lending aspect is that there's that one article we mention often, the DeFi 2.0. So does Elrond network
lending protocol that they're gonna
yeah. So because I've never been involved too heavily on the lending side of things other than student debt, LOL. Do you think this protocol or not, this platform you're mentioning, and or even to include what Elrond might bring to the table, is this discussion of like lending and borrowing like from like a bank perspective, or does that also open the door for using leverage on a centralized exchange? Like, is that included or is this different?
This is completely different. I don't believe you would be using any leverage. The only leverage that you would be using is leverage, or would be using your assets as leverage to borrow assets.
Gotcha.
You wouldn't be doing any
options trading.
Yes, or any futures trading. As I'm looking, you can lend and start earning interest on your e-gold and borrow USDC. So like there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize your assets within the Hatem protocol and allow that to work for you. So I believe you would be providing liquidity on the Hatem protocol and then be getting paid interest from people borrowing your money.
Which, ZoidPay, I know for sure, has been talking about that through the shopping pools, I think.
Yeah. So this is, I think this is something that's really cool. And as you mentioned on the DeFi 2.0 roadmap, the lending protocol is something that Elrond is supposed to put within their DeFi ecosystem themselves. There's a lot of things that we're waiting for. Lending is going to be, I'm really excited to see what the Elrond team does for lending, because like we're still waiting on the NFT marketplace, but we also have substitute NFT marketplaces out there that allow people to purchase Elrond NFTs.
Benjamin tweeted something about the NFT marketplaces that are kind of already here. Do you think that was a hint, perhaps, that, or was that supposed to be a message to us that was like, it's not maybe a priority? Is because I think I read that more as just like, let's get fired about NFTs and these are the places you can get them. But do you think there was, I didn't read into it at the time, but do you think there was any subliminal messaging with what they might be trying to like just emphasize right now?
Maybe there was, and I think that brings up a good point, because really it shouldn't be the priority. I think there's a lot of other things that should take priority over it.
I was gonna ask, like, how much would it change your stance on NFTs if they did drop an NFT marketplace?
It wouldn't change it much. I think there might be a little bit of a boost in NFTs prices, but I really don't think people are focusing on buying NFTs right now. I think people are focusing on protecting their assets and making sure that they retain as much value as they can. And maybe some people consider NFTs a place to retain asset value, but right now that would be a really risky thing to go about doing.
I don't know, man. So I know it may have been the last episode we talked about NFTs and how we project them going out. And this may also be because I did do a small bit of spending on NFTs since we last chatted, which surprised me because I think that I did kind of agree with what we discussed about NFTs, about how, well, they're expensive. And if the dollar value of Elrond goes up, then the number of Elrond would probably go down to kind of offset that. So I mean, it really just comes down to, and my hope as an NFT owner is my hope, and also what I will do. I'm going to look at how much I spent in Elrond for any of my NFTs, and I would have to like ask some true like Elrond NFT flippers, like, are they flipping to earn more Elrond, or are they flipping to make dollar money? Because that's kind of the big question with Bitcoin. A lot of people are just, the whole strategy is just getting more Bitcoin. They only, and that's the whole idea of selling high and then buying low, is they're like, great, I sold out for a little bit, but I'm literally, the whole goal is just to capture more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So, but in a world of NFTs, in a world of Elrond adoption, in general, the people who believe in these NFTs will probably be the ones who will only be willing to sell at a higher price than they bought in Elrond. And again, this is me hoping that this is the trend that takes over. But for me, unless I really need the capital, like, I'm going to hold all of my NFTs at least a 1 year holding period. And I can't rationalize selling any of my NFTs for less than I bought them.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that everything works out in the long term, and it's such an experiment, everything that's going down,
Yeah, I think in terms of flippers, because I've done some flipping myself, I like to gain more Elrond than I purchased them for. That's when I feel like I have won. And I have done so successfully a couple of times, and dang, man, it feels good to be a flipper.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
We chatted about your Elrond ape, and was there a time before that?
Yeah, drifters. I purchased at a pretty low price.
Did you mint?
I did mint. I did mint a drifter, and I purchased a drifter as well, and I believe I sold both of them near their all-time highs, which was around nice. 8 e-gold per drifter, being the all-time high floor price. So I felt good about doing that. And yeah, the Elrond network was supposed to release an NFT marketplace. We're all still waiting on that. We're waiting on a lot of things, but
there are 5 though. So two things. I mean, definitely I'll add the updated May 2022 Elrond adoption map. Everybody loves to see, if you want to take a peek, if you're not, just to see what I'm talking about. So it's just like the big picture that has all the logos of kind of the partners and things that people are building and all that good stuff. So new for May 2022. I think they updated it last time, like close to a year ago. But yeah, so NFT Marketplaces, I know we're probably mostly aware of Dead Rare, Trust Market, Frame It. I've heard good things about.
I've heard a lot of good things about Frame It.
And then Isengard, which I know is a token that launched on the DEX. Yeah. But I haven't seen much tangible marketplace discussion or action going on. And then this 5th one called Rarity, not heard of at all.
So I have never heard of Rarity, but
I've done some with Trust Market, but mostly Dead Rare. Heard good things about Frame It.
The reason I actually briefly looked at Frame It, and the reason I might start using it over Dead Rare is seller fees. They're extremely low compared to Dead Rare. And also, if you're a creator out there, all of these marketplaces, I can only vouch for Frame It because I looked at it. It seems like it's really cheap to go ahead and mint your own NFTs and start using those as well. Yeah,
I was curious about. I've been curious about making my own NFT, and even for our podcast, we've thought of how we could do something. And of course,
we should.
Yeah, in order to do that, definitely need some medium to do it. It's like if I want to make a poster, I gotta figure out how to design it and then print it. I mean, same exact process with NFTs on the blockchain. It's a whole new world that I'm learning and eager to learn more about how Frame It is making it easier for people to build, and maybe not like computer science, like heavy coding build, but still building something. And it's all a matter of what the heck you want to do with it. And there also was in the conversation of NFTs, do you think that NFTs and what they are and how they are still, they're represented by, the photo or the GIF, whatever is attached, even the sound for music. Did the introduction perhaps of NFTs, or specifically on Elrond, really kind of mess with people's expectations of MEX? because just the idea of I hold this thing and I want it to do something more for me. Because some people like the utility of passive income of an NFT, but whenever we were talking about MEX and the verbiage they used of first-class citizen, I'm thinking, when did it become expected for, I'll just keep it to lock MEX and MEX, that to really have utility? And I'm kind of neither here or there on the whole idea of it.
I don't think NFTs were the catalyst that made people think that. I think it was, as I said earlier, is Elrond putting their own foot in their mouth, man. Mm-hmm. I really think, like you have said before too, is that maybe it was meant to be just what they said it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And now they've made it turn into this thing where it has to be more than it was ever originally meant to be. Mm-hmm. So now the people have expectations, and it's kind of hard to turn people away from those expectations without really hurting the bottom line.
Yeah, that's something that I definitely talked about just when they labeled it as first class citizen. So that's why I bought back in, and when I did so and kind of announced it, because I wanted to express the faith that I have in the token and the DEX. I see it as the same, and I meant to mention this earlier when we were talking about it, but we have to be okay. If you own LockMex, we all have to be okay with perhaps never fulfilling this expectation of first class citizenship.
Yeah.
And it's weird, because whenever that verbiage was thrown around, like, that literally made me feel bearish on LockMex. Just like, why are you trying to sell it to us?
Yeah.
And like, literally when somebody's trying to sell something to me, I get extra critical. So I don't know, like, whether it was a subconscious acknowledgement or a conscious acknowledgement of mine. It's funny, after all these months, it's like, yeah, just like, why are you trying to sell it to me? Like, if it just existed and they never made any changes to it, and they did almost just ignore the wines, I just wonder the psychological impact it's all kind of had, not on us, but just like on the relationship we have with that token specifically.
I think the biggest thing was them messing with the economics at the very beginning of the DEX, changing the APRs and the rewards, and that was like, I think, the beginning of a long fall of dominoes and weird snowball effects. Yeah. But I'm hopeful for the future of MEX, just like you, Stephen, and I'm hopeful for the DEX in general, and I'm excited to continue to see people grow on it. And speaking of people growing, there's another network that is actually joining meta bonding. It's the Black Hat Network. I don't know much about this, but it's joining meta bonding, and rewards start on June 16th. So if you're staking your e-gold, if you're staking your MEX within the
meta, you are, right?
I'm staking my e-gold, not staking the MEX within the meta bonding pool.
But we're both. I'm staking e-gold too now.
Yeah.
So
I
can be back in conversations.
Well, welcome to meta bonding, Stephen. I hope you enjoy the, really low rewards.
But okay, so screw rewards, because yes, they're good for holders, but I mean, just think about the idea of decentralization. I don't think meta bonding and perhaps even MEX is not about dollars. It's about decentralization, because if you think about, people even do like to talk about like, oh, this token or NFT has so many holders or whatever. They're just trying to distribute it, and it's almost like, I can't remember if it's on a tax form, or I think it's employment documents. A lot of the time you'll have to either opt in or opt out of having a certain percent, or no, it's just a 401k. When you're signed, so in America, whenever, a lot of the time, I think the default used to be that having X% of your paycheck set aside and put in a 401k. By default, that was unchecked, and statistics showed that many people would leave it unchecked. But they had changed this because it was something that helps people save. The default became the button was checked. So I think now, if you do not want to save X% of your portfolio for your 401k, you have to opt out. So I think it's like the same mentality of like, you stake Elrond, like, you get this, and it's, I think, a long-term benefit for us. Hopefully these coins will amount to something someday, but at the end of the day, like, I don't know, Elrond is just kind of like tossing all these seeds out there, and like it is adding to the case of decentralization.
Yeah, but we also got to remember it's only adding to the case for the Eagle side of the house.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's we talked about how Benjamin said 1 to 2 weeks, and it's now been a month. So, and then I did see a tweet of his, which I just found it to be funny. It's like we could make a movie just like documenting Benjamin just like walking around like thinking about MEX, you know, like before he's going to bed and stuff. But it's true. He tweeted something about like he was thinking it maybe before bed or something. And I don't know. At this point, I think if we want to really dive a little deeper right now into it, I have ideas just based off what people have said, but also the idea of other exchange tokens and what they do. But at the end of the day, I believe in it long term, and it's like, all right, I'm down to hang now. Like, first class citizenship may not ever be like, oh wow, we made it, you know. I think it will be a very slow burn, but man, like, it just very difficult, next to impossible, to really just project, both in feeling and for projection's sake, where this will be, what it will look like, what it will become down the road, like 1 year to 5 years to 10 years. Like, forget a recession, whatever. And that's, you know, why the food shortage conversation is like, if it happens, it happens. But I still see the underlying value of blockchain. And if there is some turmoil, as long as the internet doesn't blow up, like, I still believe that what's being built here. I mean, but look at what UTK is doing with merchant yield.
Yeah.
Like, they're literally they're making opportunities for people to beat the economy. I mean, so far the world has been traditional. It's everything we know of it. But here comes Elrond and this idea of merchant yield, which is for merchants, but it comes down and it can affect everybody who witnesses it happening with adoption.
You're really excited for where 1 to 5 years we will be, and I agree with you, Stephen, because I've said it many times before, and I'll say it again. I believe in the team. They continue to build. They continue to trudge forward. It doesn't matter about current market conditions. The only thing that matters is what is in the future and what they see across the horizon.
Yeah.
So keep building, Elrond team. Steven and I are always here covering you guys. And I know I'm just excited to see where you go.
Yeah. I think the big emphasis is that Alec and I could talk about stuff for a long time, but much of it is just going to take seeing to believe. And I will say that what allowed me to kind of gain better perspective was just, and this is the nature of bear markets, is they make you feel kind of like you need to stretch out and figure out where the value is. So that's what led me to the Elrond blog, and that's as maybe lame as it is that it took me all these weeks. Like, as soon as I started to see gears turning on the bridge, obviously hitting the ground, and then UTK very soon thereafter, I read the original blog post that addressed the upgraded tokenomics for UTrust, and that opened my eyes to just, I mean, call it just the way that they speak, or they just have confidence in themselves, no matter what it is. Like, Elrond, they're not going anywhere. Like, this, if there's any point for something to fail, like, I think the time has already come and gone, and that was like in like 2017, 2018, 2019. Like, it's just, I think, easy to get this feeling that when prices are low, I don't know, like, it's never going to recover. Fact is that long term still looks good, and hopefully we can all keep our heads up. And I think just learning and doing your own research and just finding your own positions in what has promise. So Elrond is always a solid bet, and the way I see it, anything Elrond stamps its name on also gets a green light. But, you know, there are different lines in the sand, because obviously Elrond has UTrust, which has Twist Pay.
Yeah.
So that, you know, there are things that are in the tighter inner circle.
Yeah.
But I mean, the details are what matter. So what can you say? Do your own research and get excited about the future that we cannot ever know until we kind of see it play out.
Yeah, man. Well, that sounds like a really good place to wrap up. We're both excited, and we're both hopeful. I'm excited for these final MEX economic upgrades to come out, and I'm also excited to see what UTK does on its main preview, I guess, on the MyRDX.
Yeah, lots to be excited about. I'm now with the MEX ownership. It's like, hell yeah, like I was always looking forward to the MEX upgraded model, and now my money's where my mouth is. And yeah, the UTK token is testing the bridge for sure. So next time I see it, we'll see how everything plays out. We'll see if you end up pulling the trigger on some UTK, or if things do go crazy and you just wait for things to chill, which I think might be a good move. The liquidity on the DEX, depending on how that is, who knows what the demand will be.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, hopefully next we'll see, hopefully maybe a town hall. But, you know, we had a longer spell that didn't happen last time. But with everything that's, you know, this UTK is now in ESDT. So we'll see. We'll see if anything major starts to kind of unravel here.
Sounds good, man. Well, we will catch you guys on the next episode. It's been a killer episode. Been awesome talking to you, Stephen.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Well, thank you for all the love and support, guys,
Appreciate it,
as always. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hell yeah. Catch you later.
Peace. Woo!